Hello everybody, welcome back to another modelled writing video. So in today's video we are going to be looking at two task 1 questions. So the task 1 in the IELTS, you'll be presented with some data and then it's your job to report back on that data by selecting the main features, making comparisons where relevant, and doing it in a specific structure, which we'll talk about today. So if that sounds good to you, then you're welcome to, yes, watch our two different tasks today. We've got two different types of data, which will be interesting to look at. And as we go along, I'll be talking through how we can structure them and any top tips for the top band scores. All right, well, let's have a look at our first task. And this is going to focus on pie charts. Oh, more than one because of that S. Oh, okay. So the question is actually embedded in with the data this time. So, oh, this looks intimidating, but we'll break it down together. The charts below show the survey results for which environmental problems people in 3 countries are most concerned about. So the 3 countries are Zambia, Singapore, and Cameroon. And here's the key. So the problems, the environmental problems are pollution, overpopulation, global warming, and waste disposal. Okay, so now actually, once we've thought about it and looked at it a bit more, we think, oh, that's okay. It's not as intimidating as perhaps it first seemed because each pie chart is just showing us a different country, but the key here stays the same. So, and the colours stay the same, which is good. So we can easily see what the different numbers are, the different percentages. Okay, so our task is the same every time. We need to select and report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Right, so let's have a think about this. Oh, anything that jumps out? Well, overpopulation is quite high, these figures here. 43, 37, 23. Cameroon is people are very concerned about waste disposal. Global warming is quite significant in all 3 countries as well. Okay, well, let's put our ideas then into groups. And I think what we can do is maybe we can think about grouping them into maybe most concerned and less concerned. So let's do overpopulation. Oh, spell that right. Overpopulation. And the next biggest one, well, it's a maybe waste disposal or global warming. I'm going to go for global warming, I think, but it's up to you. You can do this however you like. Group 2, let's do pollution and then waste disposal. Okay, so our overview then, it's a sweeping statement, so even not all countries have to follow this trend, but it looks like overpopulation is the most concerning area for people. So in all countries, I could say something like overpopulation was one of the highest concerns for people. And then is there one where it's not very concerning, whereas pollution cause the least worry, maybe? Okay, I think that's good there. So let's just make this box a little bit bigger. Maybe we can move it up as well. So we've got the different groups there, and we've got our overview. Okay, I think that's good. So at first it looked a bit intimidating, but actually once we break it down, it's not too bad. Okay, so we've got our words that are really helpful here, and we've got our question embedded in with the pie charts this time. So let's paraphrase to start off with, as always. The charts below show the survey results for which environmental problems people in 3 countries are most concerned about. Okay, so let's be more specific. The pie charts below show the survey results. Let's not do below. The pie charts display the outcomes of questions asked to people in 3 different nations regarding which or what environmental problem, what global environmental, that's a tricky one. What issue, let's just change the word form. What issue with the environment, so instead of environmental, environment, that's a top tip. If you can't paraphrase completely, or we could say with the world around, with our, what issue with the natural world, maybe we can do that, worries them the most. Okay, let's read this back, see how it sounds. The pie charts display the outcomes of questions asked to people in 3 different nations regarding what issue with the natural world worries them the most. What issue with the natural world and environment, maybe, just to be more specific, worries them the most. Okay, I think that's good. Now we can go into our sweeping statement here, and we can start it with a nice in general. For all countries, overpopulation, and we're checking our spelling. That's a really important part of the exam. Overpopulation was one of the main worries, concerns, problems for the people, for the individuals interviewed. On the other hand, the least maybe pollution garnered the least garnered, which means attracted the least concern, worry, we'll use worry. Okay. In general, for all countries, overpopulation was one of the main problems for the individuals interviewed. On the other hand, pollution garnered the least worry. Okay. I think that's good. So now we can go into our first group where we're talking about overpopulation and global warming. So overpopulation and global warming, and we're going to pick, this is where we can use the data now. Were the 2 issues that the majority of interviewees discussed. Overpopulation and global warming in red. Okay, so particularly Zambia, we can talk about. Particularly in Zambia, the warming of the planet took almost half of votes, 43%. 43%. Cameroon, meanwhile, did not. Cameroon, meanwhile, even though Cameroon this was the lowest. Then we're talking about waste disposal in the green, so that's for the next paragraph. Let's save that actually for the next paragraph. 43%. Then we have 37%. It was also the most picked, or the most chosen option in Singapore, 37%. Okay, let's go into our global warming, which it wasn't the top, but it was steady throughout. So even though global warming, oh, sorry, here we go. I've mixed that around. Overpopulation took almost half of votes. It was also the most chosen option in Singapore. So even though global warming did not take the highest share, the highest portion in any country, it consistently it's represented 19% in Cameroon, and 10% more in Zambia for the 29%. It also was the second highest concern in Singapore, 26%. Okay, let's read this back and see how it's sounding. Overpopulation and global warming were the two issues that the majority of interviewees discussed. Maybe discussed, chose, we've used, voted for, picked. Particularly in Zambia, overpopulation took almost half of votes, 43%. It was also the most chosen option in Singapore, so we're just checking the figures here, 37%. Even though global warming did not take the highest portion in any country, it represented 19% in Cameroon and 10% more in Zambia. It was also the second highest concern in Singapore. Maybe we could say as well as Zambia. So we're comparing and contrasting here. Okay, I think that's good. I think that's good. So now we can go into our second group, which is going to be all about pollution in blue and waste disposal. Okay, so pollution and waste disposal, on the other hand, attracted less worry overall. Attracted less worry. So we have blue and green. Well, it's under 15 here. It's under 21 here. Well, it mostly scored under 20%. Mostly both options for most countries were less than 20%. There were a few exceptions. Cameroon scored dramatically 42% for waste disposal. Followed by Singapore. Singapore at 21%. Okay, so that's the exception there. Let's talk about maybe Zambia. Zambia, in fact, they have the same figure, scored the same, maybe in fact had the same figures for both options, 14%. Let's talk about Singapore and Cameroon having the same for pollution. Singapore and Cameroon. Additionally, had equal proportions for pollution, 16%. Okay, let's read this back and see how it sounds. Pollution and waste disposal, on the other hand, attracted less worry. Both options for most countries were, on the whole, less than 20%. There were a few exceptions, however. Cameroon scored, Cameroon took 42% for waste disposal, followed by Singapore at 21%. Zambia, in fact, had the same figures for both options, 14%. Singapore and Cameroon additionally had, past tense, had equal proportions for pollution, 16%. Okay, I think that's good. Let's count the words here and see how we're doing. Okay, so this answer has come to 185 words. So I think that's a good amount to aim for here. Of course, we're just looking for the minimum of 150, but there is no upper limit. So this is a reasonable amount, I think, for task one. And as always, we've got our paraphrased paragraph, our overview, and then our 2 groups. And if you follow that structure, then that will be really good for the exam, for the task 1. All right, well, let's go to our next question of this video, and this is going to look at a line graph. Okay, and the question's embedded with the data again. The graph below shows the proportion of Australians who had eaten ethnic cuisines from other countries from 1985 to 2010. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay then, so let's have a look at this. We've got our key, and these are the different cuisines. We've got Italian, Chinese, and Thai. On our x-axis, we've got the years, 1985 to 2010. And on our y-axis, we've got the percentage of the proportion of Australians. So any particular features that are jumping out to me? Well, Thai food had a big increase in the last 5 years. Generally rose over time. All cuisines really. Yeah, they all rose. And we'll get into the details of that in the main body. So our groupings then, well, there are a few ways you could do this. You could do this with the different types of cuisines. Maybe you could pair 2 together and talk about one on its own. I tend to, when there's an odd number, I tend to not gravitate towards that. Maybe for this one, I might do the years. So maybe I'll do 1985 to 1995, and then, or maybe 2000. There's an odd amount of increments here as well. So it doesn't really matter. It's up to you. Maybe I'll go up to 2000 because they generally follow a vaguely similar pattern. And then things start to change after that. So then let's do 2000 to 2010. On our overview, over time, the amount of, the percentage of Australians who had tried other cuisines had increased, particularly Thai. Thai food. Okay, so we're just making our notes here, and we will of course tweak this and add to this, turn these into proper sentences. But for our notes, we can just obviously jot down what we're thinking for this. Okay then, so the graph below, yes, I think we've encapsulated everything here. So let's go to our write-up. And as always, we've got our, well, not for every question, but we've got our words here to help us, our adverbs and our verb combination here. And we've got the question itself as well down here and the data. So the first thing we need to do is we need to paraphrase. We need to paraphrase this sentence here. The graph below shows the proportion of Australians who had eaten ethnic cuisines from other countries from 1985 to 2010. So we can be more specific and say the line graph provides information on the percentage of people. Australians is hard to paraphrase, so we can just say people from Australia, change the word format there. People from Australia who had eaten ethnic cuisines from other countries, who had tasted maybe specialized delicacies from different countries, different nations from the year 1985 up until 2010. Okay, let's read this back and see how it's sounding. The line graph provides information on the percentage of people from Australia who had tasted specialized delicacies from different nations from the year 1985 up until 2010. I think that's good. Specialized or unique delicacies, or I'm not sure about this word specialized actually. Eaten ethnic cuisines. Maybe just delicacies, or maybe special dishes, unique dishes. Those are unique dishes from different nations from the year 1985 up until 2010. Okay, I think that's good. We've got our paraphrased opening paragraph there. Now we want to go into our sweeping statement. So on the whole, the portion of Australians, capital A, who had tried these different foods had rose over time. In particular, Thai food saw a significant increase. Okay, so we're not being specific here, we're just making our sweeping statement. On the whole, the portion of Australians who had tried these different foods had rose over time. In particular, Thai food saw a significant increase, maybe by 2010. Or maybe we'll leave it there. I think that's okay. All right then, so we can now go into our first group, which is going to look at 1985 to 2000. Okay. So we can say something like, when the study began in 1985, Italian cuisine was the most tried, was the most eaten, maybe, at 9%, just below 10 there. Okay. On the other hand, Thai food had been sampled the least at 5%. The least, yes, okay. So we don't have to report on everything. We're just going to do the main features here. So, Chinese and Italian followed the same trajectory. Chinese food and Italian followed the same trend up until 1995. When Italian reached 15% and Chinese about 13%. And they were about 7% at the start. A climb from a small climb from 7% at the start of the research. Actually, we could say almost double. Almost double from the 7% at the start of the research. Okay. Thai food plateaued during 1990 and 1995 and saw a slight increase up until 2000. So Thai food plateaued, and we're making sure that we're spelling this right. Plateaued from 1990 to 1995. With about maybe 3%. Only saw a 1% increase by 2000. Okay, let's just touch upon maybe Italian decreasing. Meanwhile, Italian food saw a decrease in sampling by 2000, falling to, I'd say 14%. Saw a 1% decrease in sampling. Okay, let's read this back and see how it's sounding. When the study began in 1985, Italian cuisine was the most eaten at 9%. On the other hand, Thai food had been sampled the least at 5%. Chinese food and Italian food followed the same trend up until 1995, when Italian reached 15 and Chinese 13, almost double from the 7% at the start of the research. Thai food plateaued from 1990 to 1995 with 3% and maybe at 3%, and only saw a 1% increase by 2000. Meanwhile, Italian food saw a 1% decrease in sampling by 2000, falling to 14%. Okay, so you can see how we have tackled the years here. This is a bit tricky because they're not equal, but that's okay. We will carry on in this way from 2000 to 2010. So we could say in the last 10 years, actually, maybe we could say from 2000 to 2005, Italian the Australians who had tried Italian food stabilized at 14%. Oh, we'll keep it with the S, stabilized. 14%, while the other two cuisines while the other two cuisines grew in maybe popularity, we could say. Okay, so now we can go into some detail. Chinese continued this trend, so Chinese food continued its steady rise, reaching it reached or it witnessed 19% in 2005, becoming the most eaten that year. However, the significant surge in Thai. Oh, let's talk about this last rise for Thai food. However, the significant surge in Thai food in the last 5 years was very notable, going from about 7% to 27, and rocketing to by 20% to reach 27%. The end of the study. Okay, maybe we can leave it at that. Let's have a read back and see how it sounds. From 2000 to 2005, Australians who had tried Italian food stabilized 14%, while the other two cuisines grew in popularity. Chinese food continued its steady rise. It witnessed 19% in 2005, becoming the most eaten that year. However, the significant surge in Thai food in the last 5 years was very notable, going from 7% and rocketing by 20% to reach 27% at the end of the study. Maybe we could say we could add a line like Italian food ended in 2010 by contrast with the least portion 23%. Okay, I think that's good. We've just added that extra line there. Let's count the words of this one and see how we're doing. Okay, so this answer has come to a grand total of 219 words. So I feel like, again, quite a good goal for this question. As long as it's over the 150, then that is what we're aiming for. Okay, so this video we've seen 3 pie charts in one and this line graph. So hopefully that has provided you with lots of detail on how to answer these questions, how to approach them, how to structure them, and hopefully, yes, if you come across this in the exam, then you'll be confident with these types of questions. Well, do let us know if you have any comments or any questions that you have for us. We love to hear from you, and we will see you in the next video.